What If Series podcast, where imagination isn't limited by logic, and the line between creativity and chaos is paper thin. Our story today is a retelling of a classic story, but with a twist. Our story is called The Little Survivors by S. James.
Epigraph. Excerpt from The Sleepless Orchard Forest, October 13th, 1987. Wolf still missing. 3 dead. 1 house remains. Authorities confirm the charred remains of 2 cabins deep in the Sleepless Orchard Forest may be linked to a series of rural disappearances over the last decade. Locals point fingers at one man, Silas Wolf, a former groundskeeper turned recluse who vanished in the late 70s after being questioned in a string of unsolved crimes. "We told him not to build past the tree line," said Marion Forgotten, 83, who grew up near the area. "That's where the wind doesn't blow right. And that thing out there, that demon pretending to be a man." The third structure, made of reinforced stone and steel, remained intact. Investigators won't confirm if anyone inside survived. Local folklore now refers to the tragedy as the 3 Little Survivors, a modern cautionary tale for those who believe fairy tales are just for children. Story by Eden Black, staff reporter.
Inheritance of the Rebellion. The forest didn't hum like most forests. It watched, waiting for the right moment. Harper James stepped out of her truck and breathed in the chill of pine and soil. The property her late grandmother left them stretched for acres, ending just beyond a crooked tree line that always seemed to sway, even without wind. "Creepy as hell," Nico said, slinging his satchel over his shoulder. "But kind of perfect, right? Each of us builds our own little place, our own space, off the grid, the best kind of living." "More like off our rockers," Harper muttered, checking her tablet. "I told you, stay on the open side of the land. Past that tree line, things get weird." "You sound like Nana," Ray chimed in, twirling a piece of her green and blue-dyed hair. "She used to say there was a man in the woods who didn't need an axe to tear a house down. Just breathe." Harper shot her a look. "Exactly. And you want to live near that?" Ray grinned. "It's just a story. Besides, I'm building a chill spot, not a fortress." The 3 siblings split the land evenly. Ray dragged her supplies to a sunlit patch closest to the woods. Nico chose the middle, closer to the edge. Harper chose the open ridge near the road, farthest from the trees. As the days passed, each house took shape. Ray's was a thrown-together shack of pallets, tarps, and neon spray paint. It looked like a rebellious teenager's dream fort, which matched her personality very well. As the youngest, she was more free-spirited but also rebellious. She believed in doing things her way, even if it meant overlooking the faces that were carved in stone right in front of her. Nico's stood as a mismatched modern sculpture of wood, tin, and tinted glass, a self-proclaimed eco-creative space. Nico was the creative one, at least he always thought, even if no one else agreed. Everything had to be eco-friendly, or it was a disease to him. He was the middle child and made sure everyone knew he was, by not caring much about others' feelings. He was very strong-willed, but that's what made him tough. Harper's house was the opposite. Brick, steel beams, solar-powered locks, and a single reinforced door, built slowly but solid. Being the oldest, Harper was more logical and resourceful than her other siblings. She took heart of the world around her and didn't want any part of the darkness it held. No matter if it was a myth or a children's fairy tale, she was not the one to be caught lacking. They laughed at each other's choices, but only Harper kept a shotgun by her bed. And only Harper noticed the footsteps at the edge of the woods one night, long, deliberate, and facing her. She told herself it was a coyote, or a hunter, or just the shadows playing tricks again. But something deep inside whispered, "He's back, and he wants you." The first fall. The first night it rained, Ray didn't sleep. The wind flapped the tarp over her tiny home like it was trying to lift it off the ground. Her solar lantern flickered from the moisture, casting ghost-like shadows across the plywood walls. She lay curled on a mattress shoved into the corner, earbuds in, trying to drown out the storm with lo-fi beats and denial. Then she felt it, not heard. Felt like someone was standing too close, as though she was being watched through walls. She paused the music. Silence. Except for the tapping. The slow tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. Too slow to be rain. Too deliberate. Her breath caught as she sat up. "Nico," she called, even though she knew it wasn't. Her phone lit up the inside of her house as she dialed him. Instantly, the tapping stopped. Then, wham! The entire side of the shack shuddered. "Nico, answer," she whispered into the phone. He picked up groggily. "Ray, it's 2 a.m. "He's here," she hissed. "The man, the wolf, he's trying to crack." The wood beside her split open, fingers curling through the gaps. They were gloved. They were human. They were strong. She screamed, scrambling to the back wall. "He's blowing my house down!" "Move!" Nico yelled. She didn't wait for the rest. She grabbed her flashlight and kicked open the back of her shelter barefoot. Rain slapped her face. Cold needles on skin. Trees howled like sirens behind her. She didn't look back. Branches clawed her arms. Mud sucked at her feet. She ran, slipping, gasping, lungs on fire. Her flashlight died halfway. Only the distant flicker of Nico's strange house lights guided her. Behind her, she heard something breathing, not loud but steady, relentless, like a predator not even trying to hide. Nico flung the door open just as she collapsed onto the porch steps. He pulled her in, slamming the door shut and locking all 3 latches. "What happened? Where is he?" Ray shook, soaking and bleeding from a gash on her shoulder. He didn't say anything, just started tearing it down like it was nothing. Nico helped her to a couch made of recycled car seats. His home wasn't warm, but it was dry, electric, reinforced with metal sheets and wire mesh across the windows. "Okay," Nico said, grabbing a bat from under his sink. "If he comes here, he'll regret it." But outside, the woods whispered differently. The second fall. Nico stayed up the rest of the night. He kept Ray close, wrapped in blankets, sipping Sister Fire coffee, hands trembling with each clap of thunder. She refused to speak more than a few words, her eyes locked on the window like she expected the trees themselves to move. "He's not real," Nico said under his breath. "He's just some crazy backwoods creep. We'll call the sheriff in the morning." When morning came, there was no signal, no bars, no Wi-Fi, just an annoying beeping noise of disbelief. Nico's uneasy smirk vanished as he climbed onto the roof with an old CB radio their grandfather had given to him, trying to catch any signal. Instead, he spotted something in the clearing near Ray's destroyed home. A figure, still watching, wearing a long, soaked coat and a mask that looked more like old, blistered leather than anything sold in stores. The man didn't move, didn't wave, didn't even blink. Nico scrambled back inside. "Get your shoes on. We're leaving." Ray's voice cracked. "He followed me. Nico, he doesn't stop." They gathered what they could. A flashlight, a knife, and a portable charger. Nico even pulled out the flare gun he'd used for art shows. "Emergency piece," he said, half joking. Then there was a noise outside, a dragging sound, metal on metal. Then silence. Ray grabbed his wrist. "He's going to blow this one down too." Nico locked eyes with her. He's not a wolf, Ray. He's a man. Boom! The power went out. Sparks flew. A crack in the metal siding split wide open like a jaw. Basement! Nico shouted, yanking Ray toward the trapdoor hidden beneath a rug. He dug it months ago for cool factor, a concrete pit lined with tools and paintings. Now it was their only chance. As they climbed down, fire bloomed in the upper room. Smoke poured in like a living thing. The killer didn't try to open the door. He torched it, using accelerant and purpose. Nico coughed, pressing his shirt over Ray's mouth. "We can't stay here." There was only one exit. The side hatch meant for ventilation. Nico kicked it open. The wind and smoke howled around them as they crawled through, coughing and clawing on wet earth until they collapsed outside. They didn't speak, just ran. Nico didn't stop limping until Harper's cabin rose over the hill, its stone chimney spilling real, calm smoke. The lights were on. The door was locked, but Harper was ready for them. After one knock, Harper answered. Her eyes scanned their faces. Wet, bloody, and covered with ash. "I told you," she whispered. Then she let them in and locked the world out behind her. Fortified, but not safe, Harper double-locked the door, then slid the reinforced bolt across the top and bottom latches. Her cabin groaned softly under the wind, but the walls held. Thick stone, steel panels, and triple-insulated windows gave it the feel of a bunker rather than a home. "You smell like smoke," she said without looking at them. "He came for you, didn't he?" Nico collapsed onto a bench near the fireplace, clutching his side. The blood hadn't stopped seeping through his hoodie. Ray hovered close, silent and wide-eyed. "He burned it down," Nico muttered. "He torched everything. Didn't even try to open the door." Ray finally spoke. "He watched us run, like he was letting us go." Harper's jaw clenched. "He's playing with you, or maybe he's testing my house." She walked to her storage cabinet and handed Nico a first aid kit. "You're staying here, no arguments. I'll check the perimeter and reset the cameras." Nico coughed a laugh. "You have cameras? I have everything." Later that night, the three sat in silence around the hearth. Ray finally asked, "You remember Nana's stories?" Harper nodded. "The man who lived in the woods, the one who didn't need an axe, just breathe." She said he whispered things, said he'd talk in rhyme before he came. They went still. A knock, not a bang, just deliberate, rhythmic knock, like nursery rhyme pacing. Then the voice, low, raspy, and coated in ash. little pigs, let me come in." Nico froze. "Not by the hairs on our chinny-chin-chins," Harper called back, shotgun in hand. A pause. "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down." Silence. Then the power flickered. Camera screens glitched. Outside, something moved past the window, fast and smooth like a shadow in water. Ray began to cry. "He's inside!" Harper gripped her shotgun. Her father had taught her how to use it tightly. "No, he's not. This house is sealed." But the dumb waiter. It creaked. Once, the three turned. It had been sealed shut since construction. Harper swore she'd never opened it. It was supposed to be welded from the outside. Now it sat ajar. Nico stood, woozy from blood loss. "There's no way." A gloved hand shot out from the dark shaft, grabbing Nico by the hoodie and slamming him into the floor. Ray screamed. Harper fired once, and the blast lit the room, but the killer rolled back into the shaft like smoke. Gone again, somewhere in the house. They dragged Nico to the hallway and barricaded the dumbwaiter with Harper's steel toolbox. He groaned in pain, whispering through blood-stained teeth. "We have to burn him." Harper looked at the fire. "He thinks he can blow our house down," she said, eyes narrowing. "Then let's turn it into a furnace." Final confrontation. The fire in the hearth crackled steadily, casting warped shadows across Harper's stone-lined living room. Ray knelt beside Nico, pressing gauze to the wound in his side. His eyes fluttered, pain and fever beginning to dull his focus. "He's bleeding too fast," Ray whispered. "We need help." "There is no help," Harper cut in, loading her shotgun. "We're it." The house creaked again. Somewhere above them, a soft clink echoed through the air ducts. Ray's head jerked up. "He's in the walls." "No," Harper said grimly. "He's using the old maintenance shafts. This house was designed to survive a storm, not a man who slips through the seams like smoke." They moved quickly. Harper lit every candle. Ray positioned lamps to aim at the shadows. Together, they placed firewood and oil-soaked rags around the dumbwaiter. The idea wasn't just to trap him, it was to roast him. Nico stirred and mumbled, "He's huffing again." "What?" Harper asked, but then they heard it too, a faint, labored breathing from somewhere deep in the house. "I'll huff, and I'll puff." Then the walls shook, not from an explosion, not from fire. From pressure. Was it the wind? No. Breath. Long, drawn out, and vibrating through the foundation. "He's blowing," Ray whispered. "He's really blowing the house down." Crash! The front window burst inward, shards flying. Candles went out. Smoke surged down from the ceiling vents. The fireplace roared as if fanned from the inside. And then he was there. Mr. Wolf. Tall, coated in soot, mask fused to his skin like burnt leather. He stepped through the wreckage like he belonged there, like this house was his. Harper fired once. The blast hit him in the shoulder. He staggered but didn't fall. Ray grabbed a burning log from the fireplace and screamed, swinging it like a bat. He caught it mid-air and tossed it aside like paper. Harper backed toward the dumbwaiter, luring him with her voice. "You like fire?" she spat. "Let's see you taste it." She yanked open the shaft, now lined with oil, rags, and matches. Ray ran behind Wolf, screaming, "Hey, big bad Wolf!" Wolf turned, just as Ray hurled Nico's old flare gun at him. It hit his chest. Harper fired. Boom! The flare ignited instantly, lighting his coat and chest in a sudden roar of blue and orange. Wolf staggered backward into the shaft. Ray kicked the toolbox away. Harper slammed the dumbwaiter shut. Then she locked it and lit the match. She dropped it through the vent just as the screaming started. The house filled with smoke, but this time it wasn't from him. It was from them. Their fire. Their fight. Neko's breathing slowed. He looked at his sisters, smiled weakly, and said,
"Guess he finally choked on something."
Then he closed his eyes. Aftermath. Dawn came slowly, a pale grey stretching over the scorched sky like old gauze. Harper sat at the threshold of what remained of her front door. The hinges melted, the frame blackened, but the stone still standing. Ray knelt in the hallway, cradling Neko's head in her lap. His chest no longer rose. His lips, once smiling, were still. The house smelled of smoke and death, but it still stood. It had held, just like Harper said it would. Harper rose, her movements slow and deliberate, every limb heavy with grief. She stepped past the blood-stained floor and walked to the fireplace. Inside the dumbwaiter chute, only ash remained. No mask, no bones, just burnt black nothingness, like Wolf had never been human at all. Ray joined her in silence, her eyes rimmed red. "Do you think he was real?" Harper nodded. "I think he wasn't just real. I think he was the kind of real that stories warn you about, the kind that survives through fear." They stood together, side by side, as the wind finally stilled.
1 week later. Excerpt from a local news blog. Breaking. 2 survivors were found after a mysterious fire in rural Sleepless Orchard Forest. 1 fatality confirmed. Authorities have not identified the source of the blaze, though early reports point to self-defense against an unidentified intruder. Neighbors describe the assailant only as the Wolf, an urban legend believed to be responsible for past disappearances in the region. The last remaining structure, a stone and steel cabin, remained partially intact. Locals have already given the tale a name, the 3 Little Survivors. And a warning now posted just before the tree line reads, "If you build past here, build strong, or don't build at all."
Epilogue. Months passed. The ashes were buried beneath fresh snowfall, and the town of Ashpine went quiet again. Harper stayed behind. She rebuilt the house brick by brick, this time with fireproof shutters and hidden cameras that no longer blinked with static. Ray visited often but never stayed the night. They didn't speak of Nico much, not because they forgot, but because remembering hurt too deep. Sometimes, on nights when the wind howled through the trees just right, Harper would sit by the hearth with a fire burning low and whisper, "Not by the hairs on my chinny chin," just to see if anyone would answer back. So far, no one had, but she always kept a flare gun nearby, just in case someone ever tried to blow her house down again.
Author's note: The Little Survivors by S. James. Beyond the Box. What If? Series is a space where classic tales unravel into shadows, not to glorify the darkness, but to confront it. This story, The Little Survivors, is a twisted retelling of a childhood fable, reimagined through the lens of trauma, survival, and generational warnings. What began as a fairy tale became a reflection of what we ignore, the dangers we downplay, the instincts we silence, and the strength we often underestimate in ourselves. Every "what if" I write is meant to challenge the walls we build around truth. In this case, what if the wolf were real? What if the houses weren't metaphorical? And what if survival didn't mean happily ever after, but living with scars that speak? Thank you for stepping beyond the box with me. Keep questioning the tales, keep rebuilding, and never underestimate the strength of the last house standing. S. James. If you like this story, please be sure to like and subscribe.